This is the fourth section. We're back. Okay. That was a little intense, and I'm not 100% yet, but it's been a few hours, rested a little bit, trying to recover. I think it's honestly just stress. It's not anything I've eaten. Let's just say I've been eating a lot of oatmeal lately. You can buy it in bulk, it's easy to prepare, it gives you enough calories. It's lacking vitamin B12, but otherwise you can keep going a long time on a staple grain like that. Plus, they're fairly low on the food chain. Problem with meat and dairy is that they're both top-end aggregators. They take in things from your environment, from their environment, and concentrate them. So, you don't get the pesticides of a pound of oats, you get the pesticides of 100 pounds of grain that it took to make the pound of hamburger that you're eating, that kind of thing. I'm not telling you you've got to be vegan or anything like that. Do what you want, but yeah, if you can keep toxins out of your body, I do it. It's one of those things. What's worth more, being a little healthier or having ice cream? Some days it's one, some days it's the other. The better you do, the better off you'll be. But I'm not young. I guess I need to point that one out. I mean, I'm 55. That's not ancient anymore. But when you've lived the life I have, even trying to take care of yourself, field agents in the sections that I've worked in don't last that long. It was either I had to retire a few months back, or I had to, start writing a desk. And writing a desk into the end of the world didn't seem like a great idea at the time, so here I am. Okay. So, what we've got going on here is SCP-126. Again, fictional story. But this one's obviously going to sound so familiar to a lot of you that it's fiction, okay? The SCPs are fiction. They're tales that people have written, but like most stories, they can bear similarities to things that you know about. SCP-126 is an invisible and intangible entity that can only be identified via sound. So you hear a voice. It's a voice in the air. The entity is sentient, with the ability to speak in multiple languages, in a female voice, and engage in conversation with any subject within range. To date, no method by which the subject can be visually detected has been devised, as the subject does not appear to emit any kind of light, radiation, heat, or electromagnetic energy. SCP-126 does appear to occupy an area, as evidenced by the ability to triangulate its suggested location via its voice. So, it's a voice in the air, but you can't see it, touch it, feel it. The subject also emits sound when moving consistent with footsteps by a human subject wearing high heels with a mass of approximately 55 to 60 kilograms. How would you know the mass? Well, I guess maybe the loudness of the sounds given the materials. No depressions can be seen on any flooring materials, and pressure sensors do not register any kind of presence, because of course it's not based that way, right? I get that. The subject cannot pass through barriers that would prevent a normal human subject from passing, which is very interesting. But solid objects can be pushed through the space it occupies without any effect. For unknown reasons, SCP-126 will comply with any request for it to follow a specific human subject or move to a specific location without question. Though it may move away afterwards, or if it is not able to physically comply with the request. It's probably just polite. The subject will engage in conversation with any personnel within its containment cell, preferring topics such as art, nature, and philosophy. The subject exhibits knowledge of current topics and intelligence consistent with that of a college graduate, as well as moderate attention deficit disorder. Meaning, it gets bored if you're a boring researcher in the lab. I'm putting too much into the story here, sorry. SCP-126 will regularly change language without reason and stray off topic while conversing without warning. I get it, okay. Changes languages quickly. Attempts to question SCP-126 about its origin or nature have been unsuccessful, as the subject becomes confused when presented with such questions and will quickly stray from the topic. Despite not appearing to use or need any furniture or appliances, SCP-126 will request such items as a bed, dresser, mirror, and other sundries if not present, and is more likely to stay within a room with such items available. A small number of personnel exhibit anomalous behavior after engaging in conversation with SCP-126, including but not limited to believing that they have known the entity for many years and that the subject is a close friend or loved one. If not treated, these subjects will begin to ignore basic needs in order to continue conversing with SCP-126, eventually dying from dehydration or starvation. SCP-126 was discovered in a suburban home in Redacted after several reports of the house being haunted. A Foundation containment team was able to quickly locate the entity and, after conversing for several minutes, convinced the subject to enter a mobile containment unit, which was used to transfer it to the local Foundation containment site. Okay, basically here you have something very similar to many hauntings or a childhood invisible friend. An imaginary friend, except for, I believe in this case, when the entity speaks, they're saying that it projects real sound into the room that could be recorded or listened to by multiple people at one time. Of interest, even though that part is really unusual, as many of you know with the imaginary friend, sometimes there can be things involved, particularly with children, where they'll play with or interact with their imaginary friend over real people, and will often build a solid story around that individual. Now, in general, this is, well, basically, for lack of a better term, a mimetic device in most people. It is not that they do not believe that the being is real, with a consistency somewhat like a ghost, but rather that the being seems to be built kind of like a tulpa, or Tibetan energy being, through the thoughts of an initial human being. Now, the interesting part with this is that the idea itself, without directly being communicated, without being spoken of directly, can sometimes pass from one person to another. Now, a lot of people seem to assume that this means that it's an actual being, along the lines of a ghost or a spirit. That, say you have an imaginary friend for child A named Sally. Later, another child comes along who also has a very similarly described imaginary friend named Sally in the same place. People will think, oh, a little girl named Sally died here. Most often, that isn't the case. And the origin of that thought form, that thought being, actually comes with the first child. I've seen cases of this being passed down through a half dozen different individuals. There was even one, I believe, out of Canada years ago, the Philip Project, something along those lines. I could have the name wrong, where a group of researchers contacted and basically invented a ghost made out of whole cloth that they named Philip, who eventually showed mild poltergeist-like activity, and would interact with the people involved. One of the big dangers with creatures like this is that they tend to show the negative feelings of the people involved as well. With the Philip Project and with other Topa-like entities, it's very common for them to become violent or aggressive. Usually not that harmful, but they can do things like plague dreams, things like So, oh wow, I just totally went off on that, well away from what I was trying to do here. They say it's based on an SCP story. Again, get into these things. Get into the stories. Some of these are not that far away from things that we know of, or from things that you can research on your own. And do the research too. The more contact you have with these strange things, the better off you're going to be later. I'm going to keep harping on that. But just like you need to have some food set by, you need to be able to grow your own food and do all that prepper bullshit. And anything that you can do, anything you know how to do, or grow a seed in a container, hit somebody in the head with a pipe, anything that you can do is going to give you a little bit of an edge. So don't think, well, I don't have $50,000 to set up a tiny homestead in the middle of nowhere, so it's all useless. I can't tell you what's going to work, but I can tell you that in my experience as an agent, just knowing some weird things on occasion has really helped. More than once, just being able to do some minor repairs on cars have saved the day. And I'm no auto mechanic, but I can patch a hose and change a belt on a car. Just learning some minor easy things can really make a difference. I must have changed 30 or 40 car tires in my time. And without that, some of these people that were down in their cars might not be here right now. Of course, they may not be here right now. It's not like I keep track of people like that. Okay, let's move on here. SCP-128 is an immaterial source of kinetic energy which can be conferred upon any non-living solid material within line of sight of the source. The source itself is motile, with a tendency to remain along the walls or at the center of central wheel, of the containment chamber. A line of sight is blocked by any opaque material. The line of sight. I'm not reading this well. Honestly, it's that my eyes are so blurry. Whatever's happening. I mean, and I know it's always jump to the psychic attack or infrasound weapons being used or something like that. But honestly, nobody's gotten that close to me. I know I've hidden well enough. Nobody's poisoned me. It's nothing like that. I am just at a low ebb. Again, flat out, I'm thinking stress. This is stress related. I should take more time. We don't have the time. So let's get back to it here. So you've got this kinetic energy, which can move various objects. Let's see. The line of sight is blocked by any opaque material, including lead, steel, or even single sheets of paper, but not transparent materials such as ballistic glass. Opaque radiolucent materials, okay, I do know that word, will contain SCP-128's range of effect, suggesting that transmission of energy occurs at visible light wavelengths, but darkness does not prevent transmission of kinetic energy. Okay, that makes sense. Any loose, non-living materials within line of sight are at risk of anomalous propulsion to hazardous velocities. It can go really fast. Items under 100 grams, that's approximately 3 ounces in mass, have been observed to accelerate to velocities of up to 900 meters per second in a period, which is easily in the range of a bullet, similar to the force of a machine gun. There we go. Analysis of the mass and velocity of every object undergoing acceleration indicates that the system of affected objects contains a constant linear momentum of 2,500 kilograms per meter per second, anomalously unconstrained by direction. It is therefore advisable to have many heavier items available to the object instead of fewer lighter objects. Despite the subject's invisible and material form, it has been determined that the entity cannot be compressed into a space of under 2 centimeter radius, under a 2 centimeter radius sphere. Section. Wow. Oh, sorry guys, it's getting hard to talk. I've got a fan going off here. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, I'm just reeling. And it's now from SCP-128. Which is an interesting enough story. I'm just adding this because there are things that are odd sometimes. This would just look like, well, kind of like a poltergeist, or a tornado even, just causing things to happen in space. Little objects will move around until they generate extreme heat because of the kinetic potential. Large objects will move more slowly, but can still do tremendous amounts of damage. It's a story, I've never heard anything quite like it, but honestly, you should go to the SPC Foundation website, look up SCP-128, and read the whole thing. This is the good, mind-forming and mind-pushing kind of experience, inoculation to look into. I am going to move to the next one, though, because for some reason my mind just was not... Oh. Okay, guys, something's going on here. I feel almost drugged. Nobody has gotten anything close to me, so this is something happening either at a distance, but why? I haven't released this yet. I mean, you're hearing it now. They're not putting a team of psychics on me. Nobody cares enough. I know the thing with the computers the other day, that was weird, but nobody should be putting these kind of resources into me. Even telling you guys that things are about to get bad and that you have to get ready. Nobody's going to care that much. It's why I keep talking about the SCPs. These are stories. Well, honestly, even the computer system should pretty much be ignoring this. And maybe a few of the agents could press a button and cause things to go down, but not before they happen. Not like this. Yeah, I mean, we have psychics. We have teams of psychics, but I'm not some high-level threat to be focused on like this, even being a former agent. I can tell you guys stuff all day long about what's going on in the world, and none of you are going to believe me. Very few. So, what this is, I don't know. But I am being hit. It's getting hard to breathe. I'm just going to power through it. Sorry. It's not even sick. I feel like my eyes just want to close. Like I just want to go to sleep, but I'm not tired. Like I just want to gasp for breath, but I'm not doing anything. And as probably hard as it is to tell, I'm in fairly decent shape, so it's not anything like that. I'll try and keep on top of it. The hardest thing with things like this is it's so easy to say, oh, similar things could be causing this. This could be a psychic attack. It could be an energy weapon attack. It could be infrasound. Feels a lot like infrasound, honestly. But that should not be working here, because not in the location I'm at. There are ways of preventing that, and this is a decent location. It could also just be psychological. It could be that I've got either purposeful training somewhere in my head or have been exposed to something at some point which is trying to come out as an idea now and stop me from doing this. Whichever. Okay, sorry. Let's get back to work here. I keep saying sorry. I don't normally say sorry like that. Sorry. Okay. You gotta learn to notice differences in your own patterns. I'm not an apologetic person, so suddenly apologizing all the time is weird. It's different. Let me go on here. SCP-129 is a series of at least blank different species of fungus that can infect any animal with mucosal membranes. Actually, this one isn't that interesting. I recommend you read it. The big thing here is that we often forget the power of the fungus. It's one of the 5 kingdoms of biota. It's something like 20 to 30% of all living things, of all living creatures on the planet, are fungi of different sorts. And it's the least researched scientifically. We know almost nothing about fungi. We have the common things like yeast. I know some people will say, "Oh, well, yeast is a bacteria." It's pretty much a fungi. And if you drink alcohol, beer, things like that, wine, you use fungi. If you eat bread, you use fungi. If you eat mushrooms, obviously, that's the fruit of the fungi. And those all seem relatively harmless, and that's their main interaction. Maybe that and jock itch and athlete's foot. What we don't realize is that there are unknown effects from fungi, and that they have both infect and affect our entire sphere, our entire ecosphere. Not to get into hippy-dippy bullshit, but there are some things. There are some things that happen at times with human beings and other animals that are incredibly powerful, that really come out of the fungal world. I'll just tell you. Basically, if you ever see anything that's really approaching being a real zombie, a human being who, for all intents and purposes seems dead but keeps coming for you, it's probably a person infected with a fungus. And we can go into other things, and some of them are straight up legitimate. But yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. Plus, we have almost no way of dealing with fungi. Keep your environment dry, clean, be tidy. If you see, black mold or any other kind of mold starting to grow on your walls or anything like that, scrub it down with bleach. Bleach is a great substance. Almost everything tiny in our world that you don't want, you can kill with bleach. Honestly, I need to scrub this place down. I'll get to that when I'm done with this. Just in case it's something. It won't be that. I'm kind of thinking it is some form of a deep-seated memory that's coming out now, probably to try and shut me up. Could just be me being paranoid too. High-stress situations will do that, so keep that in mind. Let's see. SCP-137 is an entity with the ability to possess a toy, singular, gaining the physical properties, size, and shape of whatever it represents. For example, a teddy bear will become an actual bear and behave accordingly. Now, this is really rare. Matter of fact, basically, you don't see it. You don't see large matter transitions like that. You'll see objects moving, you'll see objects passing from what appears one space to another, even one dimension to another, but you don't see changes along the lines of a teddy bear becoming a real bear. It just doesn't really happen. Items tend not to do that. What you do see, though, are ideas changing along those lines. The mechanisms can be different, but think of it kind of like an acid trip, where a person on acid could see a teddy bear doing an awful lot of stuff, maybe even transforming into an actual bear, and in the right circumstances, these could have real-world effects on the person. Just because something is not physically solid doesn't mean it can't hurt you. That's something to keep in mind, because in various altered states, usually those in and around sleep, there are things that can happen. I'm not trying to make you afraid to go to sleep. You've been doing it your entire life. It's pretty safe. But sometimes if you see things and you think that it's a dream, it wasn't so much a dream, it was actually natural DMT being released in your brain, allowing you to see other portions of reality. At the cusp of sleep moving in and moving out, our brains often do a dimethyltryptamine dump. Now, this is a powerful hallucinogen which can really allow people to see into alternate realities, alternate dimensions. It's not so much a hallucinogen at all as it is a kind of way of propping open what I'm trying to do here with all of you. That portion of your brain that filters everything out can be jammed open temporarily with DMT, allowing you to access other parts of reality. Well, I can't fix that for you on that level, and you probably wouldn't want me to. You don't want to see everything around you all the time. You probably would not handle that well at all. Basically, there are things in the room with you, and if you knew they were there, you'd probably freak. But DMT temporarily can prop this open. Inoculations of information like this, while slower, can do that a little more safely. So, get out there, read the material, pay attention to what I'm telling you now. That's pretty much all I had on that one. It just reminded me to talk about that. SCP-138. SCP-138 is a human male suspected to be in excess of 4,000 years old. Again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of this particular case. Interesting enough to read. Specifically part of it down here a little bit. The subject should be clinically dead. Everything is in a severe state of atrophy, and although the subject's bioelectromagnetic field is stable, his nervous system is also severely debilitated. Subject does not show accelerated healing or vitality, just doesn't die. We certainly have encountered functional immortals. Functional immortals, it's a thing, it's a very long-lived. We'll all die when the sun explodes. Don't worry, you're not going to stay around forever, not if you're made out of matter. There is no matter which cannot be destroyed, which cannot be altered into an energy state and potentially wiped out. So one of the blessings of life. Now there are energy patterns and, even more tellingly, patterns of ideas which may be more stable than that, and we're not certain at this point. But with something like this, a person who just is really old, does not regenerate damage, but just won't go down, I've heard of things like this. I don't really know. This part probably isn't that useful. Certainly I've encountered things with people who are 200 or 300 years old who approximately reach the age of 90 and then just don't go down. I've also heard of things, and possibly have met, though I can't prove, people who reach a certain age, some as young as infancy, who just don't grow up. They don't grow up, they don't age. There's a rather famous case going on right now of a girl who, I believe she stopped aging at between 14 and 28 months, and is now, I don't have the date on that. I think she's in her 20s somewhere, but still looks and behaves as a young baby, and does not seem to be aging at all. There's no particular regeneration in a case like that, but she also, at this point, isn't dying or degrading at all either. She's showing not just the outward appearance of youth, but all of the interior properties of youth, without being able to learn, showing severe mental retardation, which is not going to help in the long run as her parents and siblings grow old and die. but it is just instructive of something you can find that will sort of show that it's very possible for people to become functionally immortal. Not always a good thing, but yeah. It can be there. I'm busily looking up some other SCPs almost at random to talk about. I'll probably skip some of these, mainly because I haven't looked at them yet. What I'm really trying to do is push myself to speak about various things that I might not think to talk about otherwise right now. Well, sort of pushing all of you to think about things, to form new patterns inside your mind. And yeah, even I'm getting bored saying that over and over again. Sorry. Again with the sorry. Anyway, let's go on. SCP-141 is a small leather-bound codex dating back to Roman times, easily carried in one hand. It's a small leather-bound book. It does not say yet what the pages are made from. I'm gonna guess at the time, or it's either vellum or papyrus. Certainly they have the technology for both. It's thin papyrus pages, there we go. Are always crisp, and has so far proven difficult to tear from the codex's binding. All attempts at radiocarbon dating have failed. The judgment of the subject as being Roman in origin is basically, or is initially based on its appearance, but later confirmed through extensive research using SCP-141 corroborated by historical records. The title is apparently Codex Damnatio, based upon the text on its spine. The pages are written in Roman Republic-era Latin. It is a detailed description of notes and summations for a wide range of legal trials. The first half contains a series of historic trials from throughout history, the earliest trial appearing to be from the prescriptions of the late Roman Republic. Well, the most recent case is the Data Redacted, taking place in 20 also redacted, which is interesting. Each case summary is extensive, with precise witness quotations, exact physical description of evidence and their importance to the case, and so on. So it's a book of legal trials with descriptions that apparently is updating itself. I can think of several mechanisms in which that could happen. The easiest simply being that whoever is holding the book is compelled for some reason to keep it updated, and then not allowed to recall that they keep it updated. But it could be several different things, including it not actually being a book at all. It could just be a set of ideas that appears to be a book. And again, I'm sorry, this is a fictional story, so in their fiction, it's a book. Let's keep to what they're saying. That's fine. I'm going a little too far afield for this. It's a danger. It's a hazard of the job. Research with SCP-141 conducted by Professor Redacted revealed SCP-141 has apparently been employed in, among other important periods, a wide variety of Roman prescriptions, heretical trials of the Catholic Church, including the conviction of Data Redacted, the Spanish Inquisition, the witch hunts of the 17th century, and the Red Scare of the mid-20th century. The later half of the book is blank and can be written in with any pen with black ink. The user of SCP-141 must provide detailed information about a criminal proceeding, including victim, evidence, witness statements, and suspect, and the Justo, and Republic-era Latin. Later readings of the book will reveal these new cases in the first half of the book, written in the same handwriting as the rest, a very precise, careful hand. See, I was jumping ahead before without having read this, and it appears whoever wrote the story has accounted for some of these things. When this information is provided to SCP-141, the particulars of the case described in the subject appear to become true in regards to memory and evidence surrounding the case. The witness's memories and testimony will correspond to the information written in SCP-141. Falsified evidence springs into existence in accordance with its description, usually appearing in the court record or the crime scene where it can be easily discovered. This has included murder weapons, suspicious traces of the subject, such as fluids or fingerprints, stolen items, or incriminating documents. It appears to be able to cause criminal activities that would not have taken place, although this requires even more precise wording and descriptions of the particulars. The guilty party, specified by SCP-141, may have a false memory implanted that corresponds with the subject's account of events, although this result requires a clever description of the desired scenario. These memories do not overwrite the original ones, but they do seem quite nearly as real. Care must be taken by all users to ensure as many loopholes are closed as possible. The subject's falsifications will stand up to all but the most critical of examinations, but it will only produce precisely the memories and evidence written inside it. While it appears to prejudice the court against the guilty party, this is not foolproof. Nonetheless, successful employment of the subject is an almost surefire conviction. Even in the event of exoneration, guilty subjects will often still be ostracized and viewed as guilty by influenced witnesses and law enforcement personnel. Okay, this is the idea of either an anomalous object, and again, in real life, you're probably looking at something either very old or from a different place, or of the idea of a haunted object. Now, haunted objects are different than anomalous objects, or they can be anyway. Generally, the difference is that an anomalous object physically has the abilities being given, and these abilities, or spoken about rather, and these abilities are generally really specific. A small clay disc or stone disc that allows you to walk through realities into, through a mirror into a different place. A stylus which allows you to use concentrated sound waves from the environment to cut stone is a very specific thing. Very often they're tools, if they show anything all that anomalous at all. Now, sometimes they can have field effects, they can appear to be magical, but they tend to be pretty one-size-fits-all. Now, haunted objects tend to actually be things invested with an idea. I'm going to use the SCP term for this of memetics, the memetic idea of something happening. Very often, people can't tell the difference between these ideas and reality, but they seem to be formed either on purpose through the physical manipulation of materials to cause anybody viewing, say, a picture or reading a book to think a specific thing or even to forget something. Think of it like really powerful hypnosis that, or maybe even closer, something along the lines of subliminal persuasion, which, by the way, does actually work. There was a cover-up in the 1940s and 50s to try and prevent people from learning about this. You'll see a lot of things now of the famous, it's been debunked level of things. If you actually go and look at studies, it is almost always fairly effective. The simpler the idea, generally, the more effective it is. More complex ideas have a tendency to be harder to work into being. You'll hear people incorrectly state things along the lines of subliminals have to be positive in order to work. That's not the case. In fact, it's almost diametrically opposed to that. If I were to subtly work into this, click the like button over and over again, I would have far more clicks on that like button. But if I were to say, don't like some YouTube personality, the people hearing it would be far more likely to comply with that, not realizing why they were avoiding or didn't like that other YouTube personality. Our brains are tuned to work with the negative. I'm, again, going off on a topic, but I'm not going to apologize for it this time. It's part of why I'm looking at these things at all, and even at random. Now, a magic book which can be used to frame people. That is outside my personal experience, but it's a good mental exercise to go over something like this. You are not going to be harmed by understanding that something like that in some fashion might be possible. I will say, in reality, most of the things that are truly odd and truly powerful tend to be simpler rather than more complex. They tend to have one singular focus rather than doing something like rewriting all of the factors of a court case. But that's also my limited experience. It's very possible with what's coming that we might be seeing some stuff that's just that big, that all-encompassing. Even things that may rewrite reality. Maybe just your local reality, but yeah, I can't say. I can't. Okay, SCP-144, Rope to Heaven. I believe that's what this is called. Located in a monastery atop a small Tibetan mountain, the subject is a thin, taut hempen rope, only about 1.2 centimeters thick, attached to a ring of jade bound to the floor of an atrium in a temple known as base camp among the researchers. The other end of the subject sends straight upward, many kilometers into the sky to a yet to be explored satellite in geostationary orbit above the Earth at an altitude of 39 kilometers, over 22 miles away, known as the Summit amongst the researchers. Several times a year, a monk at the temple ascends up the rope several hundred meters in a ritual of spiritual enlightenment. The monks report that to this day, only one person by the name of Data Expunged has ever been killed during the ascension. Throughout the centuries, several climbers have disappeared. Yet the monks believe that one day they will return, bringing greater understanding and enlightenment to them. Carbon dating of rope divers puts SCP-144 at just over 14,000 years old. No, I'm sorry, 1,400 years old. Foundation anthropologists believe that the rope and the tradition of climbing it began within the rituals of an ancient dead religion before the Emperor Songstan Nampo brought Buddhism to Tibet. At the time, it is believed that the rope was several kilometers longer. The attendant monks say that the jade ring was added in the early 9th century by Ralplicon to keep seasonal winds from picking up the rope and swinging it throughout the countryside. Oh, that's interesting. Several times a year, the head monks tie the rope from the loop of jade and reposition the knot. Research has shown that in recent years, the rope has moved skyward at a rate of 180 centimeters per year and is slightly accelerating at a rate of a hundredth of a centimeter per year squared, with only a few hundred meters of rope left. The monks are unsure of what to do when it reaches the end. Some hope to add length by attaching separate sections of rope to the original, while others believe that new rope won't have the strength of the old. Research has been unable to explain how plant fiber rope can survive 1,400 years and maintain such tensile strength at such extreme temperatures and conditions of the upper atmosphere and space that people are able to climb it, let alone support its own enormous weight against itself. All 39 kilometers worth of rope. If the summit is accelerating away from Earth, its pull on SCP-144 is also unexplained. Well, the pull itself shouldn't be unexplained. Now, how a rope can hold it, that might. The summit has only been properly imaged by ground-based telescopes, which shows the rope of SCP-144 going up and over the edge of a large asteroid-like rock, several hundred meters in width. Satellites have been unable to detect the opposite, dark side of the summit. It has been reasoned that orbiting satellites are designed to image ground-based locations or distant space objects at much greater distances than other neighboring orbital satellites. Orbital. Wow, orbital is just going to be a difficult word for me right now. I'm sorry. Dang. Researchers disagree about why images of the dark side of the summit return blurry and unfocused, rendering the dark side unknown. There's really not much to this. It's a strange story. It does kind of harken to the idea of older technologies doing things that we can't actually do right now. I've seen some. Yeah, I've dealt with some things that have done that. I cannot give specifics on most of them. Certainly, my mind tries to fill in that a natural hempen rope wouldn't last that long, so it's either been treated in some way or is not actually what it appears to be. But again, it's a story, so it can be whatever the author wants. Well, that's fine. SCP-148 is a metallic substance composed of a variety of known and unknown elements. The total mass of this subject on hand is approximately 1.2 tons. It has a gray-green color with a bluish tint, oxidizes readily in the presence of water, has a melting transition point of, let's say, platinum and iridium. Okay. It blocks or otherwise hinders extrasensory mind-affecting properties of living organisms in proximity to it. This effect, while difficult to quantify, appears inversely proportional to the square of the distance from the subject to SCP-148's surface, and directly proportional to the quantity of the subject, SCP-148, in consideration. The range for which this effect is detectable is roughly 0.8 meters per kilogram of SCP-148. So basically, they found an anomalous metal which stops psychic stuff from passing through it. Is completely believable. There's just, honestly, that it would be an anomalous substance that can't be made would be the surprising part. I certainly have seen some things. Oddly enough, Faraday cages, great for stopping electromagnetic pulses, horrible for stopping people from reading your mind or picking things up using remote viewing or extrasensory perception. It actually increases the acuity of reading whatever is inside the cage. Not a lot, but about 10%. Nobody knows why this is. For a long time, people thought extrasensory perception was an electromagnetically based ability to perceive things, but all testing actually says no. It's just not. I'm going to stop here. This is getting a little long for each one. Remember to rest. Remember to keep your mind sharp. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. Keep preparing. And seriously, keep on with this. I know this may not be the most interesting stuff in the world, but if you can keep trying to bear with it, if you can read things on your own, if you can push into the strange and weird, it may really help. But don't neglect the other stuff. I mean, get out and go for a jog. Eat a healthy diet. Learn to meditate. If you have the time, any one of those things can be what saves you. So, Godspeed. I'll try and get the next one out before you know it. Thanks.